What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Coffee with Dudes pod. Today, we're going to talk about experiences more so specifically. Alex and I are both former athletes, specifically in baseball and football for me. And we've had experience with a lot of coaches. And so I'm interested, man, in what sort of experiences, when you think back from where you're at right now, that either whether were lessons or just a coach in general that really sticks out to you, where you're like, man, I use that till this day, or I used the lessons that I learned in sports, in athletes, in being an athlete in baseball, and it's carried over to my life. Is there anything or situations or scenarios or coaches in particular that you want to shout out that have kind of given you those life lessons, man? Or they could even just be small lessons. Is there anybody that stands out?
So I got one, and I think this is probably common for a lot of ball players. Maybe, I guess I think this is something that a lot of teams and just sports in general, it's like you have to be on time, right? And a lot of times, I know my lessons growing up, I remember like one of my initial coaches was one of my best friends growing up's dad, right? So his name's Dean, and I attribute a lot of like me actually getting to where I was, or like a good base of it is to Dean, because they had a batting cage in their backyard, and I didn't start playing
So awesome.
baseball until I was 10. Right, so I was
Yeah.
a little bit later in the game. A lot of times people had been playing t-ball. I was playing soccer from 3 to 10, and then I just got sick of soccer, and all my friends played baseball. So I started doing that, and I was really athletic, so I picked it up really quickly, and got to be one of the best players like within a year or two. But I remember just like how much we'd take reps in the backyard, right? We'd go, because they lived right down the street from me. We were always hitting, and Dean was always helping us out with our swing and different things we could focus on, like all throughout. That was all throughout high school, even throughout college. I would go back there in the summer and go hit and like get feedback and tips. And so, but he was my coach in Little League. And so he always preached like, if like Reds, we were the Reds, because in Little League a lot of times you have like the different teams, and we were the Reds, and he preached like Reds time was like getting to the ballpark really early. Like we would get early, and we would take our early reps and like work our ass off, and that kind of goes to two of them. So one was just like on time is early, right? So that's always been wired into my brain, and honestly, it stresses me the fuck out sometimes now, because like I like stress about time so much, and it's one thing that I'm happy about, but I would like to like not stress about as much too. If that makes sense. So I think it's like an amazing thing, because like people, like if you're on time, like you're going to set yourself up for success, right? Or if you're always like early and you're always there, like you're reliable, right? It's a reliability type thing, especially in a job. Like you can't just show up late all the time to a job. Like you're not going to have a job. So it's like showing up on time to appointments, showing up on time to the office. It's a very good thing, very good habit to have. But then on top of that, one thing I thought about too is just like the hard work aspect of it. It's like, it goes down to anything. If you want to be the best in anything, or if you want to be successful in anything, you have to work outside of the main game, right? It's like you have to do work outside of just the regular reps that you're doing for the job or for that sport. And that rang true throughout like my whole high school and little league career, because we were always taking extra reps in the backyard with Bob and Dean, like my buddy, and his dad, and everybody else who wanted to do that. But also like when remember my junior and senior year of college, like I put in more extra reps in everything, like more extra reps in the gym, on the bike, tee, everything. Like we were on Friday nights, like sometimes like before we would go and like maybe go out or whatever, we'd go and we would go hit in the cage,
Yeah.
and we would, get a workout in, and we were doing extra reps to be the best. And that was for our team goals, but also for our personal goals. Because I had kind of realized that I had an opportunity to get drafted and to move on to the next level. And like I'd gotten clear. It's like, that's what I want to do. Right. And so the next 2 years, it was like I worked my ass off, and it worked out. Right. So it's like, it kind of goes to show you can't just like sit there and not do extra stuff if you want to be successful in things.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. Really cool. And it goes to show too, like I know it's a little bit different nowadays where like you see these kids playing. I was talking to this with one of my other buddies. It's like you see these kids playing travel ball. It's literally 24/7, right? You're playing on Saturdays, you're playing on Sundays, like it's every weekend, and they're
Yep.
starting young, dude, like super young. And it's like, I guess there's pros and cons to that. Like, of course, the pros are that it's like extremely competitive, right? Like people, you got to start from an early age now, and it's not that you didn't when we were playing either. It's the same thing, but it's cool to show that like you had that transition into where like, oh, I understand that the extra reps and the extra effort, aside from the time that everybody puts in, that's where you separate yourself. Like that's where you get better. And it's cool. It's definitely like a Mamba mentality, right? Like what Kobe does, and where he
Yeah.
had like, 2, 3 practices before he practiced with the regular team, right? He had already had a full drip and sweat practice, full speed, taking up however many shots. And it's just like, I heard him say too, like eventually as time continues to compound time and time again, you separate yourself further and further. It makes it harder and harder for people to catch up to you when you're continuously putting in these extra reps and this extra effort. And it's like, it's so true. And I found that to be exactly the same way as well. I remember one of my favorite coaches in JUCO, actually, he, Coach Friend, he was big on the mental side of things. And at the time, I didn't understand it. I like did not know where I thought he was just psycho. But he was a guy that like you used to hear rumors he'd be leg pressing at 24-hour at like 3 a.m. in the morning before he'd start his day. And like, he'd have like this mindset book and just a bunch of little sticky notes in it and stuff. He's crazy. And he would always say like certain things to us that would make you think. And so much to the point where like you'd be on defense and you'd boot a ball, and it was like this unwritten rule that we kind of always talked about when it happened at practice. If somebody booted a ball, it was like, don't look at your glove. Like it's not your glove's fault, and that was always my instinct. Like you ever boot a ball and you kind of just like, it's awkward, right? Especially in a game, you're just like, ah, shit, you let the pitchers down, you let your buddies down, and like you kind of don't know what to do. You're like you're like checking your glove. And so we would always like chirp at each other like, oh yeah, it's your glove's fault, and so
Yeah.
it just made you kind of think twice about like, no, take it on the chin, understand that that's your fault, right? Take full responsibility. Don't be the idiot looking at your glove like your web didn't break in your glove, like just little things like that just made you. Another saying that he had was, so what, right? So what? Like, so we would write that on our gloves, we write that on our batting gloves. You swung out of your shoes, your helmet almost came off, like, so what, man? Or you get dicked on a call that's 6 inches off the plate, and you're just like, no way. Or a ball in the dirt at the plate, and the ump's calling a strike. It's like, cool, that's his, right? You still got yours, right? And so it was just that so what mentality. It made you have thick skin. It made you shrug stuff off. It made you not think of like take stuff to heart. It's just like, hey, everybody at some point is going to get dicked. Everybody's going to get screwed. And it was like you almost anticipated and expected it to happen, so that when it did happen, it was just like, yep. He would just yell out like when there was a shitty call or a horrible call, he'd be like, so what? And so you just shake it off and you're like, oh yeah, so what? Like, okay, cool. Next one's mine. And I've taken that with me into today too. Like, man, dude, if something doesn't go your way, something gets thrown in your schedule that you weren't expecting, it's just like, cool, I could sit here and pout about it and be frustrated and just be like, damn, the day's ruined. Like, this sucks. Or I could just be like, so what, man? Like, so what? So what? Now what? Like, what are we going to do now? And so that's something that like I've taken with me. I've preached that to clients. At the time, you don't really necessarily understand, the gravity or the importance of it and how long those kind of messages stick with you beyond just the game. And man, yeah, super grateful for him. That's one of many. He has a lot of them, but those are just like a couple I could think of off the top of my head, man. Is there anybody else that comes to mind for you?
Yeah, like I've had some good coaches over the years. I'm struggling to think of exactly like extreme lessons that like other than what I preached there. And everybody was like, it's like you got to be on time, and you got to make sure you're here, and preaching like that. You're like working, you doing things outside of this is what's going to help you like get to the next level. It's like we only have this amount of time to work, and it's like the reps you put in and the effort that you put in towards those reps is key. But also like one thing that popped up when you were talking, like the so what is kind of like presence. Like in baseball,
Mm,
especially, you have to be present with that. Like if your head's in a different place, you're never going to hit very well, right? It's like you have to be locked in on that pitch and like your timing with that pitch and like where do you need to be? Like I was always a huge fan, like focus on one thing, right? It's
Yep.
like one thing, like what is my one thing that I'm going to focus on at the plate? Because if I have a bunch of different things I'm focusing on, I'm not going to be successful. So it's like presence. It preaches presence. I need to be present with this pitch. I need to be present. Like if you're in the field with this pitch and this like this rep here, and it just, I think it is something it's ever difficult. It's always going to be hard to do that. Like I still struggle with it, but it is like something when you can just focus on this, like in the job, like this person that you're talking to, or like this being present in the meeting and like listening and understanding what's going on. It's like it does go a long way, right? You're going to get a lot more out of it. And so I think that's a huge thing for being successful as well that I've taken from I think it's just a thing that you can take from baseball necessarily, not necessarily I ever really thought about until today. But then also pressure, right? It's like handling pressure. Like you're in an island a lot of times, especially if you're a hitter or pitcher. Like pitcher, you have your feelers out there, but like it's on you to execute the pitch, right?
Yeah.
At the plate, like bases loaded, 2 outs, like at the plate, like it's on you. Like you have a lot of pressure on you to be successful, to find a way to get these runners in. And so I think it teaches you a little bit too over the course of time, especially when you get into higher levels of baseball and there's maybe a little bit more on the line. It teaches you to handle pressure and to handle like, higher, like bigger moments, which can make things a little bit less significant. I think when you get into maybe the business world or different things that you might be doing. Right. And so I think that's a huge thing. The two huge things that I kind of thought about too, where it translates, it's almost just like not necessarily lessons I've learned, but just like things that can translate from sports to just like real life too, and whatever you're doing.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. And I think the presence thing's huge too, because you're absolutely right. Anytime I'm thinking back of like anytime I found myself not being in the present, if you're thinking about the ball you booted, if you're thinking about the girl in the stands, if you're thinking about, what you're doing after the game, if you're thinking about anything else other than not doubting yourself, right? That's a big thing too. Is like the second you started doubting yourself, man, it feels like the game just speeds up and it's so fast and you're like, damn, I can't keep up. And there's other times where it's just like this cool, calming, in the zone, like you can't miss anything. It looks like a beach ball. Your mindset's in the right spot. Like you're just looking to tee off. And so like, it's like being able to constantly find that zone and be in that zone dependent on whatever else is going on that day. And it could be like that you just got thrown out trying to steal a bag last inning and you're still thinking about that, or like, you got a shitty jump and you look stupid, or like whatever, right? It could be anything. I remember one of my first games with Chico Outlaws, dude. I lost the ball. This is one of my first times playing outfield too, dude. I didn't play outfield till I played with them, because I think you and I were talking about, it's like I went from being 6'2", 220, 230 to first baseman's now being 6'4", right? Like your size, dude. Like, and so that was like the norm over at first base. So I had to transition to outfield, right? And I remember one of the balls hit, it went above the stadium. Like I saw it, boom. And again, to your point, I've been tracking balls after practice, before practice for hours, because I was like, this is different, dude. Like this is way different. Yeah. You have to get the read. You have to get the jumps. Like it comes off the bat differently. Like, and so I remember it I knew it was coming to me. I saw it off the bat, and then I lost it above the stadium. Like all of a sudden it has like that twilight where the sun's like right above the top of the stadium. And I remember like going, holy shit, I have no idea where this ball's at. Right. Like, and I just like kind of, I knew it started off to my left, like over my left shoulder. And I'm like, bro, I have no idea where it's at, but I'm still looking up. And then I'm like, I don't want to get smoked in the face. And one of my biggest mistakes was I put my hands up like this and like shrugged, right? Like I kind of like went, I don't fucking know, And then my center fielder had to come over and he got it behind. It was like 5-10 yards behind me. Right. So thankfully I didn't get smoked by it, but 2 runs scored on it. I'm like, Jesus, like, and so I'm in my head and I'm leading off the next inning too. We're playing away, the outfields, the fans are just wearing me out. Right. I'm like, oh my God, dude. Like And so I'm like, you know what? That's when I just thought back to like, I gotta spit on this. Like, you gotta you're leading off the next inning, right? And I came up. Dude. This was one of my first games too. And next inning, I came up and I got my first base knock, and I was like, cool, dude. Like, I was able to shake it. Like, I had to stay positive. I was like, just look to the middle of the field, find something you can drive. And I completely had forgot about it. But like, that took like an overwhelmingly amount of reps to be able to do that. It's extremely hard. It's extremely
Yeah.
difficult. And I look at somebody who like hasn't had those practices or reps or experience, and they take that with them to the plate, and they're still thinking about just what happened, let alone playing an away game where the fans are just wearing you out, you know? And it's just like, it can be brutal. So the game of baseball teaches you a lot. It teaches you how to be present. It teaches you how to shake off things that just happened, even though when it feels like the world's against you and you're holding the weight on your shoulders. You know, he's like, dude, you got to come up and you got to swing it, right? So like, and your team's counting on you, your pitcher's counting on you to support them with some runs, and so the game of baseball, I think, is really, really cool. I know there's a lot of lessons, and I'm sure that you can think of too, where it's just like there's stuff that just carries over to life. That's the same thing as like somebody cutting you off, right? Like somebody cutting you off while you're driving, and you want to flip them off, and you want to speed up to them, and pull up next to them and flip them off, make sure they see. Like, dude, what's that going to do for you, right? How's that going to have you perform for the rest of your day? Like, how are you going to show up for whatever it is that you're doing for the rest of the day, for your family, for your job, for whoever else needs you for the rest of the day? And so just like how my team needed me in that situation, like, hey, bro, they were all super cool. They're all like, bro, it's all good. Just don't throw your hands up. Act like you know where it's at. Like, just camp under it. Like, you think you know where it's at, even when you lose it. So there's a lesson I learned from there. It's like, don't throw your hands up and go like, I don't know where it's at. Communicate. Like, you can verbally tell your center fielder that you can't see it. But yeah, so I learned a lesson from it. I was able to shake it off pretty quick and then just come back and capitalize on it. And it doesn't happen that way every time, but that moment will stick with me forever, because I'm just like, dude, you're capable. You're fully capable, and you should be confident. You should be able to lock in the present moment. And yeah, dude, that's just an experience that I've taken with me into life, man.
That's good shit, dude. Yeah, no, I think that's a really good thought on like mindset and like learning lessons from the things, like making adjustments. It's a huge thing in any sport, is like making small adjustments, and like you're going to make mistakes, but like, what do you do next? Right. When you make that mistake, do you learn from it, or do you let it compound? Right. And that goes for anything that you do. It's like, we even talk about it in health and fitness, where it's like, if you make a mistake, do you allow that mistake to turn into a week of you just being completely out, like going crazy on everything that you know that's not going to move you towards your goal? Or do you just like, oh, I made that, like I did this, it's not even necessarily a mistake, it's just like, let's just get back on it, right? It's like,
Yeah.
I fucked up, let's get right back to what we know we're going to do. And it's a huge thing that really translates to everything, right? And it's not always easy, but I think that's one thing that I pride myself in, that I think goes somewhat to sports. Like, it just like, that was my life for almost 25 years,
Yeah.
was sports. It's all I really thought about.
Yep.
Right. And it's kind of crazy. Maybe it was more like 23, 22. I don't know, whatever it was. It was my life for a long period of time.
20
And
plus years. Yeah.
yeah. And it was something where one of my things, like whenever I've interviewed for jobs, I'm like, I don't make the same mistake twice. Like if I make a mistake, I learn from it. I'm not going to make that mistake again, which I think is a huge thing to have, a huge skill, like to be able to acquire. And it takes time to do it. But like, I pride myself in like learning from those mistakes and like being able to make adjustments. And that is a huge thing that I learned from baseball, where it's like,
Dude,
I was
awesome.
always never satisfied with a bad game. I was like 0 for 4. Like, I'm going to do something different the next game.
Yep.
Right? I mean, a lot of times, like in ours, we would have double headers. So it'd be like, 0 for 4 the first game. Like, I'm making some adjustment. Like, I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm going to make sure that, I'm feeling a little bit different, or I'm focusing on something a little bit different to help me get out of this and have a good game. And that was a huge reason why I was as good as I was in baseball, is because of that. Like, a lot of people would be like, I'm just going to keep things the exact same. Like, and I just was never that way. Like, the swing wouldn't change, but it was like my focal point would change.
It could be the approach. Yeah, it could be the approach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, to the eye, it wouldn't look different, but to me, it would feel different, right?
For
And
sure.
it's like a little bit of something that sparks a change. And I think that's something that that a lot of folks can learn from, because you see it all the time in any job. Like there are people that it's like they're constantly, you show them how to do something and they're constantly making that same mistake over and over and over and over again. And it's just like, you can't do that very long before you get let go, depending on what the
Yeah.
job is. Some jobs won't let people go, but it's like,
Yeah.
if you continue to make these mistakes when you're told how to do it, or you're told like the change you should make here, it's just it's something that I think a lot of people could definitely improve on there. So that's what do you got anything else to add here to finish
No,
us
man,
up?
that's great. I mean, we could talk about this forever, but like
Oh, yeah.
what you're talking about right now is that they say it's like the mistake repeated more than once has now become a habit. And so it's
Yeah.
like you're creating new habits now that aren't going to serve you, that aren't going to serve the company. How do you think you feel as from a reliability standpoint if a job's looking at you and they're like, dude, this guy keeps messing up over and over. It's okay the first time, like for sure, maybe even the second time, but now if you're just blatantly doing it and you're not, there's no effort there, there's no, like you said, there's no adjustment to even the focal point or the approach or anything, and it's just like, dude, come on, you got to be able to help yourself, man. So yeah, man, there's so many lessons that we could just go over, and it's great, man. I think that's why, one of many reasons as to why I believe sports is one of the things that will teach you a bunch of life lessons that you may not anticipate when you're in the sport, but they show up later in life. And you're like, man, I'm glad I was an athlete. I'm glad I participated in sports. I'm glad I was competitive. I'm glad I gave a shit. And like that will show up later in life too. And people will notice it too. Like people will know when you're an athlete, you carry yourself differently. You have a different approach to life. A lot of times, depending on the jobs, they like to hire former athletes. I know for like sales and like closing roles, they like to hire former athletes because you have that competitiveness in you. You have that team camaraderie in you. You have that presence about you. And so there's a lot of jobs out there that hire former athletes. So shout out to all our former athletes. Hopefully you were able to take at least a golden nugget from this, from anything that we were talking about and sharing our experiences. If you enjoyed it, make sure to tune in. We are on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all the platforms. We're posting twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And if you found something interesting in this that we talked about today, be sure to share it with a friend, a family member, somebody you guys feel like could benefit from it. And we will be catching you on the next one.